Music at First Hearing. Welcome to First Hearing, our weekly get-together with new record releases here at WQXR in New York, and a get-together as well with critics of same. I'm Lloyd Moss. Today's regular critics, Edward Downs. Welcome, Mr. Downs. Paul Turok, nice to see you once again. And a new guest critic, the distinguished actor and narrator Werner Klemperer, whose very name, of course, has an imposing musical ring to it, and who, by coincidence, was practically my dining companion at the Maestro restaurant last night. That's where I learned you were going to be here today.
Good. It was fun to have dinner there, wasn't it?
It was a lot of fun. I welcome you, and welcome you other gentlemen as well. Today's program will be to coin or maybe even steal a phrase, mostly Mozart. And we'll begin with the first movement of his Symphony No. 39 in E-flat. It's marked Adagio Allegro. That was the opening movement of Mozart's Symphony No. 39 in E-flat, and while Paul Turok was playing the pizzicato passages on the double bass, Werner Klemperer was conducting. Was the orchestra following your every move, Mr. Klemperer?
Well, of course, they have no choice. It's in the groove.
Yes, I'd say. What did you think of what you heard?
Well, first of all, for me, this whole introduction to that first movement is such an incredible piece of music that I lose objectivity. I think it is one of the major pieces of music in the world, of course. I liked the orchestra very much. I thought they were good orchestra. I loved the tempo. It was just right for my personal feeling. It certainly proves one thing, that those who believe that Mozart is a rococo composer is really way off. For to me, Mozart is Beethoven. I mean, I think he is robust, he is strong, he's dramatic, he's romantic, he's all those things, and he's not lace handkerchief. And I think that was proven in this performance. I thought it had a great deal of strength. I felt it had a beautiful line. I missed you were talking about the pizzicato. That must be in the recording. I thought it was I could almost not hear it, and I think it's very important. Yes. Those bars.
I think that's why Paul was trying.
Maybe I was trying to help it along.
I think you were. It was in the recording, possibly. I suspect, and I may be wrong about this, I suspect that this is not a very recent recording. Now, I'm going to go right into the pond on this one, I'm sure, when we find out it's the latest recording. But I suspect it is not.
Mm-hmm. I really have it has to be relatively recent at any rate, but we'll talk about that a little bit more when we do all of our identifying. Paul Turok, were you trying to help the bass along?
I guess I was. I thought the recording was rather cavernous and...
what is that? I'm sorry, what does that mean, cavernous?
Cavernous means cavernous, I think.
Oh, cavernous.
Yeah, right you are. Okay. Recorded in a bathtub or in a shower with a glass door or something. It had quite a bit of echo for me, and I enjoyed the performance very much. I don't think I'd want to live with it on a daily basis because it stretches the expressive possibilities almost to the end, I thought, in the sense that sort of like somebody reading a Shakespeare sonnet as portentously as they would read a Hamlet soliloquy, and then it sort of turns out that it works. But it's just a little off the beaten path. I think that the attempts at textural clarity, which were there, I heard marvelous accents and clarinets and things. Obviously, this conductor is working at bringing out the detail. They were, in some degree, I thought, defeated by the breadth of the performance. Very interesting, but a little strange.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Paul Turok. Edward Downs?
Well, it was that very quality of slight strangeness that really grabbed my attention very pleasurably at the beginning. I was instantly prejudiced in favor of the whole thing from the first couple of bars. It had a very individual style, and I liked this business of bringing it closer to Beethoven, because even of the last three symphonies, the E-flat is conventionally the one that has less character. It's not tragic like the G minor, it's not grand like the Jupiter. But this gave it a very strong character, and for the first time I was very much reminded of the Magic Flute with those opening chords and there's something about the seriousness of the Masonic ceremonies and the high moral tone of the Magic Flute that somehow was here not in a heavy or overweening way, but it gave great character, I thought, to it. There were funny things, odd things about it. I was continually surprised by the way he articulated the very first line, ba-dum, ba-dee-da. It makes me want to go back and look very carefully at the score, because I had the feeling this conductor was, as you said, being very concise and very detailed in his attention to all the little markings. I wouldn't wonder if this is all in the score, but details that I'd overlooked.
You said something, Mr. Downs, which I feel very strongly about too. I had the feeling after the first few bars that whoever conducted this would convince me all the way through, whether I totally believed in everything or not. But it was this conductor seemed to be saying, "This is it."
It's an angel recording, and the conductor under discussion is Jeffrey Tate.
Oh, a fine musician.
Yeah, now the English Chamber Orchestra's regular conductor, who also conducts frequently at the Metropolitan Opera here in New York. Huh? Your father did record this work as well.
Yes, the introduction to me was ominously close to my father's recording, I felt. After that,
Yes.
It went into different areas, but I felt I toyed with the idea and then rejected it.
Yes, you had also observed the fact that some of the repeats were not.
Oh,
to use
yes,
the
I
same word,
think this
observed.
also proves that the great classical composers, when they wrote these repeats, knew what they were doing. I think it belongs there, and
I agree.
I resent this taking away the repeats so often.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. First hearing will continue in a moment with something not by Mozart. We now continue on First Hearing with two songs for soprano, clarinet, and piano. They were written in 1837, and that, of course, rules out Beethoven and Schubert. Chronologically, Schumann could be the composer, but he isn't. Our mystery contributor was a German composer, though, and perhaps you'll be able to identify him. Let's listen. We heard two songs, Sehnsucht and Wiegenlied, by whom, gentlemen? Paul Turok?
I'll guess at Ludwig Spohr.
You guessed correctly, right out of the barrel.
May I give my reasons?
Yes, please do.
One, he was good, and two, he sounded like everybody. And these songs are very good, and they sound like everybody. And given the dates properly, I guessed at Spohr. He sort of fits in the cracks. He's really a very interesting composer. When you read the books about Spohr, the one line that they give him, they say, well, he experimented with chromatics and you know, came before Wagner's Tristan. A handful of works do that. An awful lot of them sort of wander around Beethoven's idiom with a little added spice in terms of Schubert harmonies, but he was a very German composer, and a lot of what we identify with Beethoven and Schubert, especially Schubert, was very much in the air in southern Germany and Austria at the time. You hear music by second-rate composers of the time, and much of the idiom is there, just some of the genius missing. But Spohr was an excellent technician. I think you can hear that in these songs. They're very clearly etched. I think the weakness shows up in some of the noodling that the clarinet was doing from time to time.
Our singer?
I thought the singer was excellent.
Very good. Thank you, Edward Downs.
Yes, I enjoyed the singer very much. I thought she had a special quality of tenderness in the cradle song in the second piece. And that really was a kind of tour de force, wasn't it? To write a whole song, a very interesting song, just on 3 notes. You'd think it would. It takes a lot of imagination to do that, and I think that she got a very special glowing quality into the voice, and the voice is beautifully produced. It's a typically German-sounding soprano, I would say, but it fits this beautifully. I enjoyed the performances very much, and the songs weren't totally devoid of individuality. They're a great pleasure.
Were they brand new to you, Mr. Dance?
Entirely new,
Yes.
yes. I don't think I'd ever heard them before.
Werner Klemperer, had you?
No, oh no, my God, no. But I have heard Spohr, of course, and it's really sad. It's interesting what you said. You said that he is really quite a wonderful composer, but that he sounds a lot like the others, the ones that we all know. And isn't it a shame? Because had the others not been there, he probably would have been a very great composer.
It's the story of my life,
No,
too.
but I really mean that. I think he's highly underrated. I think this vegan lied, the cradle song, is really moving. I mean, I thought it was quite wonderful. I am not totally sure, at least I wasn't in the beginning, whether the singer was a German. Not 100% sure now. She probably was. I've heard a lot of vowels that are usually American singers are in love with their vowels, and they try to hide the fact that their German is not absolutely perfect. So I had a suspicion she might not have been German.
You are correct in that. However, she's not American either.
Oh, there are other non-Germans.
Is that true? Yes. This is
Well said.
Julia Varady, leading soprano of the Munich Opera, pianist Hartmut Höll, clarinetist Hans Schöneberger. Mrs. Varady is also Mrs. Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, and Mr. sings More Spohr on the reverse side. As a matter of fact, that would be a great title for the album, wouldn't it? More Spohr?
But then she is German in that sense. In other words, she
Yes,
probably
and
speaks
yes.
the German language.
I'm sure that's
fluently.
true.
The
And
voice had the production was somehow sounded quite German to me.
the recording is an Orfeo German import, as a matter of fact. And I thank you, panel. We're going to return to Mozart in just a moment. We now conclude first hearing with the opening sections of Mozart's Requiem. As we all know, he died before completing the work, but the portions that we're going to hear are believed to be authentic Mozart. We heard the opening sections of Mozart's Requiem. Paul Turok, would you like to go first?
Yes, I lost interest in this performance. I actually found it very oppressive. I think that I was wondering if the composer's name was Amadeus and the movie's name was Mozart. I really felt there was something hyped about it. It was just being pushed, and then when the soloists came in, why, they sang very nicely, I thought, especially the soprano. And I just felt it a sort of a throwaway performance. I just lost interest in it, and I found it didn't illuminate the music terribly much, and it didn't do anything for the clarity of the texture, especially in contrast with the performance of the symphony we heard, where such pains were taken to try and illuminate what Mozart had written. Here I felt it was just overbearing.
Mm-hmm.
And the sound was raucous even after we turned it down a little.
Thank you, Paul Turok. Who's going to go next? Edward Downs?
Sure. I felt something of that overbearing quality. It occurred to me, it's an odd thing to say, that a Requiem Mass could sound shouldn't sound portentous, but the opening movements did, and particularly the Kyrie fugue. I thought that was made to sound almost kind of Grand Guignol, threatening, and that then deprived the Dies Irae, which to me is one of the apocalyptic things in all music, and that somehow did not come out with the power and the tragedy and all the variety of things that it's supposed to have. I felt that the conductor had spent all of that quality, or tried to inject it into the. After all, the Kyrie is a prayer for mercy. Other things that I liked, I thought the tuba mirum came through beautifully. The bass was wonderful, and the trombone solo sounded grand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Edward Downes. Well, you're in a rather difficult position if you enjoyed the performance, Werner Klemperer, because you have to go fly in the face of your two colleagues here and say precisely what you feel. Did you enjoy the work?
Well, to me, where the introduction of a piece of music is so profound before it ever really starts. This whole introduction he has in this opening movement was just devastating. I totally agree with you. It's the first thing I wrote down. I said soloist out of balance. When the soprano arrived, she was in another city. It was really very odd. And I thought the presence of the chorus for me was too strong. I thought there were three different entities. There was the orchestra, there was the chorus, and there were the soloists, and it wasn't one whole thing. I suspect that whoever conducted this, that his background must be with choruses, and he probably tends to, that's the feeling I had. This guy wants his chorus to sound great. And the chorus did sound wonderful. I also feel very strongly about what you said, this whole beginning of the fugal aspect in the opening movement. I think it was rushed. To me, the tempo immediately was too fast, and all the kind of accents were not clear enough to me, and so it lost me a little.
Yeah.
But listen, give or take, the opening movements of this great work are great, no matter where you are.
Yes, you said that when listening that it was setting you up for the day. And Paul Turok, you made an
Well,
interesting...
let me just explain that quickly.
Yes,
what I meant,
please.
setting up for the day. It's not because it's a requiem that I'm set up for the day, but it is this kind of music, for me personally, that literally can guide my whole feeling for a whole day. Yes, it absolutely can.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Werner Klemperer. And Paul, you were saying that as a composer, you really have to blot music out for the better part of your day, and I found that fascinating and yet so obvious. It would seem that would have to be the case.
Well, it's not a question of blotting it out so much as not allowing... I love music. When I'm not composing, I'm listening to other people's music, but it's a question of having the discipline not to let it overwhelm you. And, I mean, the emotional power of music is so great that if you don't sort of stay aware of it, it just will overwhelm you. I mean, and a lot of people I know use it strictly for that purpose, and I can't afford to.
Yes, aren't you glad that you don't have that problem, Edward?
Yes.
Yes, that's you, Werner. Yeah, it's marvelous.
I love to be
wallow in it.
overwhelmed. I mean, I think for me, this is so subjective, but for me, the overwhelming aspect is so fascinating because when you are, and I'm very seldom really overwhelmed.
I think that the part of the problem is that, or the answer for you is that you don't have to then sit down and compose.
No, I don't.
But, you know, it applies to a certain extent to great art, too. I have walked through a great exhibition and then felt quite drained emotionally afterwards in terms of doing any creative work.
Yeah. I'm sorry we have to leave this discussion, but we're running out of time. It's another Angel recording. Daniel Barenboim conducting the Chœur et Orchestre de Paris with soloists Kathleen Battle, Anne Murray, David Rendall, and Matti Salminen. That wonderful bass. Thank you, gentlemen. We conclude First Hearing for today. Our critics, Edward Downes, Paul Turok, and Werner Klemperer. Werner, come back very soon. It's been very enjoyable. And
I'd love to.
I'll probably see you at the Maestro anyway. Until next week at the same time. This is Lloyd.
Our reputation is in danger here.
Yes, I guess you're right. For First Hearing. First Hearing is programmed and produced by George Jelinek.
Stay tuned for the latest news, followed by Laserbeam Encore. Tonight, music of Beethoven, Debussy, Pergolesi, Bach, that is, and Saint-Saëns. Now, if you're confused by finances, not